So, Tim, we have a very special guest. I'm always excited to either have this gentleman on a call or to just to have a one-on-one private conversation. I never leave a conversation without learning something. And I also walk away with something I want to talk to this gentleman about. I walk away with this sense of purpose and service from this person that always that I admire and always inspires me. So, Mr. David Allen, appreciate you being with us today.
Mr. Frank DeSena, happy to be here. Glad to be back.
So I want to start off with kind of what I just alluded to. Yes, you know a lot about insurance and retirement planning and taxes and finance and what have you, but there's also something about you that I don't know if a lot of people know, but I know the people that work closely with you know, but you just genuinely care, right? And whether that's your clients or agents, and that could be agents that you don't even work directly with, which a lot of people that if they don't know you, they're going to see today. But you just have that, I would call it a gift. I would also say it's probably something that you're intentional about, and that you it's just a character trait of yours. But you genuinely care. Can you share that? Can you also share why first, but then also if you can share, is that something that you think helps you to be successful in our line of work?
Yeah, I just wrote down 3 words on that, care, why, and helps, so that I can stay focused on what you just asked me. But yeah, I can take it all the way back to when I was a very young boy, 7, 8, 9 years old. And a phrase or a message that my father lived by that I embraced was quite simply, my handshakes, my hammer, my words, my bond. My dad was a contractor. He hated the legal side of things. He hated having to go through those 100-page contracts to do a $50,000 job. You know, he would look at our industry today and say, okay, it's a life insurance policy. Why does it have to be 3 volumes of books that you're delivering for, you know, a policy from America or Mutual or whomever that we're using to help our client? And it's the same thing for me. Is it a gift for me? Yeah. I'm not the guy that believes I wasn't ordained to be a certain thing. Okay. I didn't start out in this industry. I didn't even start out in construction. Honest to goodness, I was going to leave high school and go right to Hartford, Connecticut and study to be a rabbi. That's where my start was. Okay. So I believe everybody has a purpose for being here on earth. I believe that there's a higher being. Does it look the same to you, Frank, as it does to Diana or to Cassie or to me or to anybody else? Maybe, maybe not. I'm good with that. But I believe that if you find the thing that you truly are passionate about, it's going to come out of you and you're going to be able to be the best version of yourself that you can. I do read my Bible every morning. That's my first 20 minutes when I roll out of bed. I know that I can listen to a song, any song from anybody, and I can Google that song and I can find a reason for its existence somewhere in the Bible. And I can find a reason for it. But what I honestly love to do more than anything else in the world is coach somebody to become a better version of themselves. That could be in this arena. It could be on the life side. It could be on the annuity side. It can be infinite banking. It could be in the music industry where I had a great career before coming here. Doesn't matter to me. I love coaching people to philosophically be able to get into their head, find a better version of themselves, and then be able to translate that into what they're doing. So for me, being here, there's no greater joy than sitting down with somebody who's within 10 years of retiring. They're afraid that they're going to be told to leave before they're ready to go. And they don't know if they're prepared. So guess what? Let's have a conversation, because that's all it is. If you're that person, Frank, I just want to understand what your target is. When does Frank want to be able to say, I'm done working and no longer have to do this unless I want to do it because I just want something to do. That could be 50, could be 60, could be 90. I don't care what the answer is. I just want to know what Frank's desires are. I want to know what Frank's dreams are. I want to know what Frank views his retirement picture to look like. From that, I want to understand your income that you're collecting now. I want to understand how that's going to change when you stop working. I want to understand what your expenses are, and I want to understand how they're going to change. And then I simply want to take income minus expenses after the change. What's that variance? So if you're making, and again, I'm just picking numbers for this call. If you're making 10 grand a month and that's going to turn into 5 grand a month when you stop working, that's something important to know. But likewise, if you're spending 7,500 a month now on your monthly bills and it's only going to drop to 6,000, we need to figure out how to either shave your expenses by a minimum of $1,000 a month, increase your income by a minimum of $1,000 a month, or some combination thereof. And it's the structure of that and putting those pieces to the puzzle together that really gets me the most excited about what I do for families. Okay. So I truly care that people understand this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm doing it, because you've given me a goal. Why do I do that? Because honestly, it's fun to me. I've got a date that I don't want to work 20 hours a day anymore, but I don't have any expectation, because I love what I'm doing, of completely getting out. My youngest son is working for a large brokerage firm as a wholesaler on the P&C side. But I told him, you need 2 to 3 years there before I want you working with me. But I've got a book of business I'm going to want you to take over in a certain period of time. And then I want to be able to slow down a little bit and have a little bit more of a quality of life with his mother, with my wife. But I want him to learn some things from the world before he comes and learns this. And I love watching him do what he does, because he truly embraces, how do I make other people better and take care of these clients so they always want to talk to me because they know I'm the guy that knows how to fix it. His nickname where he's at is the fixer, right? My nickname here,
too far from the tree.
Exactly. My nickname happens to be the annuity assassin because people know I write 50 or 60 of these a year. I still write a couple 100,000 a year in life. People don't look at me and think I do that, but I do that because I don't care what my client needs. I'm going to go find it for them. So if it's life, it's life. It's an annuity, it's an annuity. If it's both, it's both. But I just want to be the guy to help. And the way I help is by educating my client so that they can make the best possible decision with the information I'm going to bring to them. Whether they do business with me or not, I am going to bring that to every single appointment because of my feeling that I've been placed in this role by something much greater than myself. And I'm just going to walk that until somebody or something tells me it needs to be something different.
Well, and Dave, before we get into the meat, I have to ask, I'm just curious. At what point, if you can recall, did you become aware of the fact that you are passionate about coaching and caring for others? Is there an instant? Was it over time that you intentionally built that, or when, if you can go back and recall, is there anything specific that brought you to that awareness?
I was
And
15
why?
years old. Yep. Great question, Frank. I was 15 years old. I was in the high school jazz band. And most people go to these classes and they just want to play. They don't understand that the quality of what they bring to the table with their instrument will affect how the whole group sounds. And I actually got nominated to try out for an all-state jazz band in California. I auditioned for it. I made this all-state jazz band. 3,000 or 4,000 people auditioned for 20 spots. And I got one of these 20 spots.
Wow.
But the message I got from that jazz band director was, if you're not playing with an ear on everything else so that what you hear on yourself complements what you're hearing from everybody else, so it sounds like one sound versus 20 different instruments, you're not here for the right reason. And it instantly clicked with me. I got back to high school, and the first thing I told the band director was, we've got 175 people in this marching band, but it sounds like 300 because we're not listening to anybody. And I want to talk about that. And I forced him to break things up into groups of 10 and teach people how to sound like one unit with groups of 10. Then we brought it into groups of 20, then groups of 30, until all of a sudden we've got this 175 member marching band that could compete with some of the local colleges in Southern California and hold our own. So I've taken that message through everything I've done since then. I need to understand what you're saying, but I also need to read between the lines to hear what you're not saying, but you're really telling me. For example,
That's
you've
huge.
got a $500,000 retirement saved. I want to know how much you're willing to risk leaving in the market. And I want to know what that not to exceed number. That's what I call my Vegas equation. So Frank, you decide you're going to take your wife, you're going to go to Vegas for a week. You're most likely going to have a conversation about how much money you're willing to gamble, how much money you're willing to lose, and that's your line in the sand, not more than that. If you lose more than that, it's an unsuccessful trip, no matter what else happens, because you lost more than you wanted to. But as long as you don't lose that, so if you lose less or you even win, it's a great trip. Well, when I talk about a retirement savings with somebody, you've got, let's say, $500,000. What's your line in the sand for what you're willing to lose if the market never recovers? Is it 10%? Is it 5%? Is it zero? I don't know, but I can't do my job unless I know what you're willing to risk. Now, why is the understanding of what you're willing to risk important? It's because I'm not replacing your securities advisor. Could be at Merrill Lynch, could be T. Rowe Price, could be Edward Jones, could be any of them. But maybe you're willing to lose 50,000 of your 500. What you haven't said, but you're saying loud and clear, is you're not willing to lose any of the other 450,000. So my pivot very simply is, Frank, when I come back next week, I'm going to show you options that can guarantee you're not going to lose the 450,000. If you like it, we'll talk about what it looks like to move forward and put it into place. But the 50,000 you're willing to lose, I want you to go ahead and leave it with your existing guy. If he makes money with it, great. But by protecting the other 450, you've drawn a line in the sand because you can't lose it if it's not in that account anymore. And then I simply ask if that makes sense. When they say yes, I ask them for a copy of the statement. I go figure out what carrier, what product. I get ready for that follow-up visit. But I want to understand what somebody is saying, and I want to get really, really good at reading between the lines of what they're not saying, which could be nonverbal, could be verbal.
Love it. I love it. And guys, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but the reason why I'm intentionally asking these questions that are kind of outside of the box questions are because we're talking to somebody that produces our number one annuity producer currently at FFL.
I think this year, Brad, I'm probably top 5.
Right.
But since I've been here, I've paid over $28 million worth of annuities in 4.5 years.
Right. So and that's why I'm asking these questions, guys, because if you can just see in the last, whatever it's been, 6, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, David is not talking about power closing techniques and you could tell he's not money hungry. He's truly passionate about helping the client. And I think a lot of times, not to say that a lot of us are money hungry or trying to do one over on people, but I also think on the other side of the equation, people may seem, oh, I don't know enough about annuities. I'm not ready for it. But I think if you genuinely care about helping people, coaching people, and putting people in a position better than they were when you met them, then I think that number one, you'll be a little bit more, how can I say, motivated or inspired to learn more about annuities, right? Because there's people that need our help, but also maybe you'll be a little bit more courageous in having those conversations and then coming back to the drawing board and speaking to an expert or specialist like David, that we have many people of on our team, that can walk you through what the next steps are. So I just wanted to everybody to kind of get to see, number one, David's true colors, and I want everybody to see what it takes, what type of mentality, what type of heart, and what type of place that someone like David comes from when they are meeting with clients, right? It's about genuinely caring. When you sell that amount of annuities, right? And I don't even like to say selling, but he's putting that many people in a better position. It's not because he's a master closer, right? He's a master at caring. And so I appreciate you sharing that, Dave. I appreciate you sharing kind of your backstory. I think that's, I didn't know that about your 15-year-old story, which is pretty cool.
I appreciate that.
So to get into a little bit of the meat on the annuity side, I know that a lot of people in the beginning, especially if they're starting off with helping final expense clients or what have you, their first thought may be, I'm not going to be able to find people that need an annuity or have a need. What would you say to that?
I'd say you're just not doing your job. Okay. I did the SRS liftoff call this morning,
Yes.
and I'm going to tell you the exact same thing I told these people. And I'm going to start with a question. So if you guys will all open up your chat boxes, just drop a number 1 in the chat box if you're interested in learning how to put an extra 100 grand a year in your pocket. Just that simple. If you want to know how to put an extra $100,000 a year in your pocket, drop a number 1 in the chat. And that thing should be flying right now, which it's starting to do. So that's good. So this is what you need to know. When you first got into the insurance business, you had to learn how to be an insurance agent. You had to buy leads. You had to get comfortable dialing. You had to get comfortable talking to people. You had to get comfortable going on an appointment, collecting the information so that you can quote and or call somebody like Frank or anybody else in your upline and say, I'm meeting with Mary and John and I need help with my quoting. You had to learn how to be that agent. The reality is the same license that allows you to be a life agent, you don't need any extra licensing to sell an annuity. All you have to do is understand that you have to take the time to learn how to do it. The only thing on our financial inventory worksheet that we do is ask one question. And you can ask it whichever way makes you most comfortable, just so you understand if there's an opportunity. And the question very simply is, what do you have that acts like life insurance? Or some people might say, hey, Deanna, do you have anything like a 401k or an IRA that you're saving in for down the road? It's the same question asked 2 different ways, but that's it. That's all you need to know as a brand new agent or even an experienced agent that wants to use your license to its fullest capacity. Once you have that, you finish your lead appointment. Then you just circle back. And Diana, since I use your name, I'm just going to use your name, but we're not actually role playing. You don't need to unmute. I'm going to go back to Diana. Maybe Diana told me she's got an old IRA. Hey, Diana, we got your mortgage taken care of. You're a single mom. You've got a couple of young kids. I'm sure that made you feel really good to know if something happens to you, your family doesn't have to sell the house to make sure your kids are taken care of. And I'm getting her to buy in that we've already done a good thing. I also want to let them know that we do more than just what we showed up to do. So Diana, even though we've done that, I just want you to understand we do a lot more than that. We are a full service company at your disposal to help you with whatever you want us to help you with. For example, you mentioned this old 401k from an old job. We have the ability to analyze that and allow you to move it potentially to a better place where it can be structured to cost you less money in fees, sometimes as low as 0, depending on how it's structured. We can put it somewhere where legally, according to the state of wherever Diana lives, right? They allow us legally to show you options where if the market goes down, you're not going to lose a dime. And I'm sure in 2022, you lost a little bit of money because everybody in the US did. Right? We also have the ability to allow it to grow when the markets start to rebound. And we can create an old school pension at the appropriate time when you're ready to start drawing on that money. All I need to do is get a copy of your statement, set a follow-up appointment, because I know you and I are both busy today, and I'll come back and show you what those look like. Okay, that took us about 3 minutes, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
That's all anybody who has or has not tried to use the opportunity needs to do, is just talk about the possibility. Now, if Diana feels good about that possibility, she's going to say, you know what, I'd like to see something. If she's not interested, there's 30,000 people a day that are retiring right now in the United States. I am not going to get hurt if Diana says, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, perfect. Diana, when your policy issues, they're going to send it to me. I'll be back to drop that off. Right? And I'm going to drop off that policy, or I'm going to make sure that it gets emailed direct to her and she signs a delivery receipt and sends it back to me. So I make sure that we can check the box off. Now, if she's local, I'd rather drop it off in person, because now I can talk about what the markets may have done from the first appointment to the drop off of a policy. And maybe I can generate a little interest and see if she might be willing to look at something now. But the goal is, let them be as comfortable with you on this as they are with whatever else you've just done for them. But you just want to introduce the concept because you want them to be intrigued enough to want to know more, and a little fearful that if they don't find out if it's a good fit for them, they might actually lose by not looking. So that's it, intrigue and fear. We have options. These are how the options work. I don't know if it's a good fit for Diana, but I'd like to take a look and see what we have. And when I drop your policy off next week, we can look at that at the same time. Now I'm dropping two birds into one visit, which makes everybody feel good because you're not doing one thing at a time, and I'm not asking for 4, 5, 6 appointments. One appointment, drop your policy off, you'll sign a DR. Let me show you an option and what we might be able to do for you if you like it. And if you like it, we'll talk about what comes next. And I just completely keep it all low key.
Love it. Two things I want to ask there. First, you said that you could potentially, if it's a local appointment, you can go and show the client any possible market fluctuations or volatility that had happened since the last time you spoke. How would you actually do that? How would you show her that example?
The example is going to come by way of two things. Number one, you'll have an illustration if you got a statement. And number two, I can open up my laptop or I can open my phone up to the finance app and it'll tell me what the market did. Right?
And then you just physically show her.
Yeah, I literally have just an iPhone. So I go to the stocks icon, and if you look at that, there's either red or green. Green means they made a little bit of money, red means they didn't. So I'm going to click on the S&P 500, and there's a wild, crazy chart, and that's just today.
Mm-hmm.
What if I want to show, well, actually, that's for the month. What if I want to show them the last quarter? There's the last quarter. I can show that to anybody and say, does that keep you up at night? Especially if they're within 7 to 10 years of retirement age. So you find somebody 55 or older, they don't like that. That makes them nervous. It makes me nervous because you can afford to lose in your 20s and 30s because you've got a lot of time to recover. You can't afford for that type of thing to happen for an extended period of time, like most all of 2022, if you were planning on no longer working in 2025, because you don't have the luxury of recovery. So now we can start talking about, do you want to work extra time just to wait for the market to come back? Or do you want to cut your losses? Do you want to stop your bleeding now? So one of the things that I do to be able to talk about that, and it's a great question, Frank, is I look at that stuff every day. And I put myself in a position where I can talk about it. I do not have a securities license, so I will never speak about buying, selling, or trading stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. And I'll be the first one to tell the Dianas and the Nicks and the Jeremiahs that I don't have that license. I'm not that guy. If that's what they want to do, that's great. Stay where you're at. But if you're getting tired of that rat race, if you're getting tired about wondering how long it's going to take for something to come back that you thought was never going to go down, maybe we should talk about how to protect the portion you're no longer willing to risk.
Got
But you
it.
have those talking points. Anything you can talk about that they can go online and find for themselves, you don't need a license. Because you can go online and say, look, I went to msn.com, I pulled up their stock page,
Correct.
and this is an article I got. They can go look at it themselves.
And it's so powerful because it's sales 101, guys. If I know this client for the past week, right? She knows me from Adam. She's hoping that she can trust and that we can build rapport. But at the end of the day, what I say to her only goes so far. But if I can show her an app that both of us can download, right? There's zero affiliation to me or my company. That builds trust way more than anything that I could verbally say to her. She's seeing it. It's an app that she can download as well. So it might sound simple, but it's very powerful. So there's another question, and then I want to challenge you on something, just
Okay.
out of curiosity. So I'm also getting a lot of flack with people or newer agents and saying, hey, now that we're on telesales, I don't think that selling annuities is as easy as it was when you're meeting face to face from a trust standpoint. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would challenge them to find out why they don't want to make sure that they're the best agent they can be and as well-rounded as they can be. I'm licensed in 37 states. I sell in every single one of them. Clearly, it stands to reason because we're not stupid people here. I can't be in 37 states every day in person, right? Diana, what state are you in? Wherever that is, if it's not Southern California, I can't meet with you in person tomorrow, but you might be really anxious to stop the bleeding and do something tomorrow, right? Perfect. Let's get on and do it virtually. The trick really, whether it's in person, Frank, or virtually, is that first 30 to 90 seconds. If you're not dressed like a professional, if you're, you and I both have beards, okay? They're not scraggly, they're not growing all over the place. We're not people that haven't combed our hair, right?
Right.
We're wearing button-down shirts. We look and sound like professionals. You got to do that virtually just like you do it inside a home. If you don't, all you're doing is selling yourself short. And I'll be the first one to tell you, if I'm going to do a virtual sale and I'm the customer and this person's dressed in a t-shirt, and I know we got a lot of agents that like to do that, I'm not interested. Find me someone else because I don't believe you're respecting me by not being that professional. I don't know any other way to do it. Doesn't mean everybody's got to do it my way, but I believe that's a big part of our presentation. We have to represent as professionals. We have a license to do this for a reason because the state says we have to be better than the people that don't have a license. A lot of people love Dave Ramsey, but guess what? He's never owned a life insurance license. He talks about life insurance all day long. He's got a ticker on his podcast. They're paying advertising dollars to him. The guy filed bankruptcy twice because he sucks at real estate. Let's just be real about the guy. But he's really, really good at teaching people how to get rid of debt.
Yeah.
So guess what? I use his snowball method to help people get out of debt, but I don't talk about him when it comes to insurance and retirement because he doesn't have a license, and I don't want to refer to somebody and give bad advice potentially, or get sued because I took the advice of an unlicensed individual and try to pawn it off at my own.
It's powerful.
It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my family. And I got a kid that I want to leave my business to. So I've got a rep that I want to have out there, right? I want him to walk in my shadow, walk in my shoes. He doesn't have to walk like me, he doesn't have to talk like me, but I certainly want him to dress respectfully. I want him to dress professionally. He's only 26. He's a young guy. 26 is kind of young to sell annuities if that's going to be your core product. It's not for me. I'm a little bit older, but a 26-year-old's got to be well-rounded. Okay. So I want to set the right example, not only for him, but for the people on the team. So if somebody feels like they can't sell an annuity virtually, I would tell them, you know what? you can come on to my calls. I'm not going to let you show your face. I'm not going to let you unmute. But if you want to listen to me do it virtually and see two people live, I get to a follow-up appointment. I close better than 90% of every appointment I have because I treat it with that respect and responsibility. Okay. If you go in and you feel, and your client feels like you're just trying to get a close because you need a commission, we call that commission breath. If you sound like a salesman, anything that causes them to feel like you're not there for them, you've lost. That's why I'm okay if you or Diana or Charles or anybody else says, I'm not interested in talking about retirement stuff, I'm good. I talk to 15, 1600 people a year about it. One no's not going to hurt me because guess what? Their friend's going to end up talking to me one day and say, man, I just talked to this guy, David Allen. And Diana's going to go, man, I met him 6 months ago and did nothing. Maybe I should call him. That's what happens. There's a circle around the world for very specific reasons. Everything comes back.
And there's a culmination there with you can, the fact that you care is important, right? But you can't just care. It's the fact that you care and you speak to 1,500 or what did you say?
1,500, 1,600. Yep.
Right. So you can care about people, but it's going to affect you if you only talk to 100 people a year, right? It affects
100%.
you less when you care and you talk to 1,600 people a year. So here's my challenge for you. And it's just because I'm curious. And I want to preface with why I'm curious. I had a recruiting call years or a while back with a woman from California. I distinctly remember she'd been in the business of 30 some odd years. She was very successful. She had come from the life insurance space, grew to the annuity and retirement space. And I remember her telling me that she was securities licensed. And I remember her saying that she would rather not be, but what she ran into was the fact that she would meet with a lot of clients for annuities, but then they had a nest egg or a lump sum of money that they didn't want to put into an annuity. So they'd put a portion of it into the annuity with her, but then they had all this discretionary, these discretionary dollars. And she just felt like she was giving away that business to somebody else, but not just the fact that she would give the fiduciary responsibility away, but she was also giving away her client, which could potentially create a, let's say a competitive factor could occur where maybe those people tried to sell her life insurance or an annuity. So I guess my question is, have you thought about that from the security standpoint of being able to keep the client on all aspects and all fronts of their financial picture? And if you have, why haven't you got your securities license?
All right. So again, you prepared for today. So I applaud you for this. This is a great question. I thought about a securities license. I also think about the fiduciary responsibility thereof. And for those that might not understand fiduciary responsibility, with annuities, which is not a market-driven product the way we market it, because we're not doing the market side of annuities. There actually is a market side to annuities, but we do not represent those. The Mid-East, if you will, the Ohios, the Illinois, the Indianas, they came out initially and now it's gone nationally with what's called best practices, which very simply says we have a fiduciary and legal obligation to make sure if we recommend a product, and I take that a little farther out to say any product, including life. If I'm working with you, Frank, and you have an annuity, and I recommend another annuity, which means I'm basically saying I want you to move from where you're at to where I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I have a legal, ethical, fiduciary responsibility to show you that what I'm recommending is a better option and a better fit than what you have now.
Right.
If I cannot do that, and I do not disclose that to you, and you make the change and realize that I sold you a bill of goods, which would be really unfortunate for me, you can sue me under these best practices rules and you're going to win and it's going to cost me my license. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but this is why I care to do the right thing no matter what.
Mhm.
And at least 2 or 3 times a month, I'm telling somebody I'm not the answer.
Hmm.
I cannot improve what you're doing. You need to stay where you're at. But the next thing that I do is I say, if somebody comes along and tries to tell you they can do better, I would like you to take those illustrations, call me, and I will review them for you free of charge. And if I agree with that person, I'll tell you I think it's a good move. And then you can go with them. Or if you like me better because I'm willing to go the extra mile for you, maybe you have me write it. So I'm looking for an opportunity there if I can, but I still want to make sure that they're getting taken care of properly. I'm not at this point in my career willing to go after a securities license with the additional record keeping, the additional licensing, the additional fiduciary requirements to take on that aspect of the business. So what I have honestly done, let's use you again, Frank. You've got $1 million portfolio with your securities advisor. I have people that I partner with that understand they're going to get the asset under management, the part that I'm not going to take care of. So
Hmm.
maybe the right answer for you is a $750,000 fixed index annuity. For 2 reasons. Number one, it gives you the income guarantees that we want to give you. But number two, because you want to leave $250,000 in the market, and if you lose it, you've decided you're okay losing 25% of that. I'm going to point you towards another broker that's got a securities license that can take that piece and manage it for you. So I'm still involved, but I'm not giving you that advice. So I'm not putting my license at risk.
And you're working side by side with a trusted advisor that you know is going to do the right thing and not steal other parts.
100%. And then I have the Frank DeSenas of the world that are having that dual relationship. They sign a nice piece of paper that says the person that's going to manage the market side can openly and freely talk to me about what I'm doing for you and vice versa. So we make sure that your ultimate goals are met. Translated, we're going to operate as a team for you. I'm going to talk about my part. They're going to talk about their parts, but we both want to make sure you're going to get to your goal. Okay. It's not an uncommon question. It's not an uncommon thing. That's why my Vegas analogy works as well as it does, because I'm telling people up front, I'm not going to ask you to move all your money. I'm asking you to give me an opportunity to show you how to protect the money you're not willing to lose. You can leave the rest of it where it's at. Or if you don't like your broker because it takes you 3 weeks to get a return phone call, I will find you somebody else that I refer that part of the business to, so you're taken care of the way you should be.
Mm.
And all of my phrases, all of my words, they're all geared under the concept of making sure that they understand that I am who I am. I care. I want you to get the results you want. I want you to get the goals that you want. And if you're not going to be able to hit the goals, it's not going to be from anything I did. It's going to be because you don't have enough, or you've decided to go in a direction that I didn't recommend. Okay. But I want the people I'm talking to understand that everything I do, no matter what it is geared towards you getting what you want in the time frame that you want it. You want to retire in 5 years? Let's figure out if we can make that happen. If it's going to take you 12 years, I'm just simply going to be honest with it, but I'm going to have illustrations that show you why.
Mm.
So if an FIA is the best answer, but you need 12 years for the accumulation to get the numbers you need, I'll show you what 5 years look like. And Frank, you're going to be $2,000 a month short if you do this in 5 years. But if you wait until 12 years from now and get that extra 7 years for growth, you're going to be within $200 of your number. By then, you're probably going to have some expenses that have fallen off. Maybe your mortgage is paid off. Now you're going to have surplus funds every month. I'm happy to write it either way for you, but I want you to understand my suggestion is to wait the 12 years based upon what we're looking at versus trying to stop in 5. Now, that being said, if the market goes gloriously grand and you can still stop in 5 because the market beats the illustration, we'll have that conversation in 5 years so you can stop early if you need to. That way the client understands it's a very fluid conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You had a goal. I'm telling you the goal it should take longer than what you want. But if we can meet it early like you want, we'll go ahead and help you to make that happen. But it's dependent upon other factors. I can just bring the products and what they possibly can do. And then the other factors have to do what they need to do to get you to your goal.
Yeah. And the guys, that's true advising, right? Like there's conversations there that may not be easy to have with the client because maybe they have different expectations, but they're necessary, right? Like this is somebody's livelihood, it's somebody's future. If you have the knowledge and information to give them to kind of shine light on their future that they may not see, why would you not have that conversation, whether it's easy or not to have? So I have a question for you that's a little off
Right.
topic,
Hang
but
on. If I
yeah,
can, really
yeah,
quick.
go
Um,
ahead.
for those of you that have sat in a room and listened to Sean Mike talk, one of the things that drew me to Sean Mike when I first heard him speak back in April of 2019 is he gave an example of talking to somebody and he just flat out said, sometimes you got to have the hard conversation. And the two phrases that came out of his mouth, which come out of mine also are, hey, Frank, can I just be transparent with you? Or can I be, Cody, can I be frank with you? And you're getting permission from the client.
I can't say that one.
Right. Exactly. But can I just be honest with you about something, right? There's got to be a phrase that you're comfortable saying that's basically asking for permission to pick up a baseball bat, hit your client upside the head to say, you really can't do what you really want to do.
Mhm.
And I'm just trying to help you to understand that so we can do the things that we can do for you.
Right.
So if you ask your client permission to make them feel bad, they're not going to feel bad because they said it's okay to say it. Okay. At the end of the day, we're financial coaches.
Mhm.
So let's go out and coach and be as badass as we can from a caring platform so they know we got their best interests at heart.
Mhm. Love it. You had mentioned that there's a couple times a month that you have to tell somebody that you can't put them in a better position than they are or that they're heading. Can you share a story? Because I don't care how ethical you are, I don't care how much you care about people. There are there probably has to be a time where you're working with somebody, it could be such an incredible deal. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to put them in the position, but you know it's better that they don't. Can you share a story where hopefully you have a story, but where you did the right thing and you lost a great opportunity, but maybe it came back around in a different way in your favor?
Yeah, I can actually do that. This is a actual crazy story. It's pre-FFL.
Okay.
I sat down with a good friend of mine from church and they use their bank's advisory services. We analyzed everything they got. We made some recommendations for a fixed index annuity. And I was trained by somebody who was trained to get the contract to issue right away. And with this particular product, you got to check a box that said if money was coming from multiple different places, do you want to issue the contract on receipt of first funds or do you want us to wait until all the monies have arrived? And I honestly was coached as soon as the first check gets there, have them go ahead and issue the contract so you can get paid. I was
Okay.
brand new in the business. I'm good with this. I want to get paid like everybody else does. What they didn't tell me is if you do that, all of the subsequent rollover monies that were being allowed to go into this FIA went into a fixed interest rate account at
Hmm.
1% growth,
Wow.
which at the time was still better than the banks, but over the next 12 months, his fixed index that he chose to watch grew by 11.5%. So this guy gets his annual statement expecting to make 11.5% on his money, and he only made it on the first check, and there were 7 checks that went into this account.
Wow.
So he called me and said, I've been shorted 60 some odd $1,000 of growth. What the hell's going on? I get
Hmm.
into it. I look, okay, let me go to bat and fight for this. So I couldn't get any traction with my upline. So I went to the VP that I was working with, who took me to the CEO of this IMO,
Huh.
who started a fight with the carrier. But this took about 7 months.
Wow.
And About 5 months in, my client looked at me and said, I don't want to do this, but I'm not getting results and I think I need to file a claim on your E&O insurance. And I really didn't want to claim on my E&O. And I said, and his name was Joe, actually. And I said, Joe, look, I've never had a claim on my insurance. I really don't want to do that now. I need a little more time to make this happen. And if it won't happen, I am going to pay you personally if I've got to give you monthly payments for the money you lost. And we'll find someplace else to move it. And that was painful. My kids were young and I didn't earn as much in commission as he lost in growth. At the end of the day, we got the carrier to agree to go back and rewrite the contract, but I had to take a 100% chargeback on my commission immediately. And they said, we'll just put it on the books. You're just going to have to write with us for a while to work it off. No different than we got dealt with carriers now. And I actually had to swallow going to the CEO to say that the person who trained me didn't tell me that part. So I didn't do that part because he was mad at me for not advising the client. And I didn't know. I didn't know. Now, Frank, you could have been the person that trained me and you were this person's right-hand person, but I refused to throw you under the bus. Had I known that, I would have done the exact opposite. I would have said, hey, Joe, we can issue it right away, but that means this is going to happen with the rest of the money as it starts to filter in. I didn't even have the opportunity to do that. Specifically to your question, have I ever done something because it's better than, even though I probably shouldn't? I did it once or twice very early in my career knowingly, and then my conscience said, don't ever do it again. So I didn't. Thankfully, it was a period of time when the market was very strong, so the clients did very well, so I didn't have to worry about it. Okay, but would I recommend that to anybody today? Nah. There's too many people out there that need our help legitimately that you shouldn't have to fudge anything. And there's plenty of companies out there that will allow you to do things a little different than, for example, the way Athene likes to see their suitability forms. We have other companies that are a lot more relaxed about that. So we can actually do it without putting the client in harm's way, without having to feel like we're pulling a fast one. We can be honest and say, these guys are really strict because they're a big, huge, powerful player. These guys aren't as big. They've got a good product. We'll be able to get you approved, but you might not see the same growth you have over here, but we can still guarantee you're never going to lose money. Right. And at that point, I just want to be able to roll it out and say the right thing. Because I don't want to be the guy that anybody comes back to now and says, you told us to do this and it didn't work.
Correct. And okay. What are if a new agent's watching this right now and they're excited, right? You got them a little fired up. What would you recommend 2 or 3 things that they could start doing today to start to gain more confidence in the annuity space?
I would start looking at anything you can see on the internet, on your iPhone, on your Android that talks about the market, so that you have talking points that everybody can pull up for themselves, because that builds trust and value. I would look in a mirror and say, I have to be comfortable understanding the key components about what an FIA does conceptually. Allows you to grow your money with 0 risk of loss, a reduced fee, sometimes 0, the ability to add an income rider if they're going to need income from this at some point in time. And it acts like life insurance. If there's money in that account, when someone dies, it's going to go to the next of kin. You have to be able to get comfortable talking about that. People need to understand that we do have a requirement where possible, because it's not always a perfect world. But if you can get a statement, you really want a statement, because it does 2 things for you. It validates that they have what they say they have, and it allows us to verify if it's a retirement account or a non-retirement account, because they have to be illustrated differently. Many times I've had clients, or agents rather, call me saying, I've got a client that said they've got $500,000 and it's in an IRA. Great. We put together an illustration and then client says, well, this isn't an IRA. This is just money I've been investing over the last 20 years. Now I got to re-illustrate it because I can't get him to say yes to an FIA off of an IRA illustration. It's got to be the non-qualified. So you want to make sure you understand how to read those statements.
Right.
Okay. They can easily go to you for that. The other thing they can do is you can go to the fflams.com website, submit it to Ask a Specialist. They will create that illustration and send it back to you. You have the ability on that input form to say, I'd like to get a seasoned expert to help me. All you do is check a box. Now, there's two types of help. Do you want somebody that's just available by phone if you've got questions? Or do you want someone to take the bull by the horns and actually lead that appointment on your follow-up and actually help you close, teach you how to do an app, get your money transferred, etc. And there's different levels of splits for both. Whatever you want as an agent, that's great. But that's a new service that we added nationally so that we can help the masses of agents become more comfortable and get a faster learning curve. The reality of the goal is this, Frank. We want to be able to work with an agent 2 or 3 times from A to Z.
Mm-hmm.
And 90% of those agents should be able to go out there and do 75% of the work on their own now.
Yeah, I agree.
That's something we've been missing here that we're really finding to put into place. So if Nick's never done annuities and he really wants to learn faster than not, he wants his next 2 or 3 opportunities to be, I want to work with an agent and let them take the bull by the horns. Because by the time you're done, Nick's going to be able to do 75, 80% of that appointment all by himself. Okay. And to me, it's worth it to give up part of that commission to get the training because you're going to make it up tenfold as you start writing annuities. Right. So I talked in the beginning when I had everybody drop in their number ones. And if you're a brand new agent, starting commission is somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 5.5%, depending on a couple of factors. But let's use 5.5%. And Nick goes out there and he writes $100,000 annuity. And there's construction going on in my house. So if you hear some noise, I apologize.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So Nick goes and gets $100,000 of 401k money from someone who just retired, moves it into an FIA with Athene. His commission when that policy issues is $5,500. So there's 3 things you now do. Number 1, you set aside a little bit of that to pay taxes. Number 2, you set aside a little bit of that to buy leads. So you keep your business going. Number 3, you go take your wife out to dinner, you put some money in your personal savings, you pay some bills off early, whatever you want to do with that. So you try to break it up into those thirds. That's usually my suggestion. Mm-hmm. Because if you just move $100,000 a month, that's $66,000 a year in free cash flow that you would not have had you not tried to do it. You do 2 of those a month, you're talking about $132,000 in cash flow. Now, if you don't need an extra 100 grand, don't do it. But if you can sell 1 or 2 annuities a month and it pays 100% of your lead bill for your life business, you've just taken that thought process right off of your to-do list. I'm going to go ask the golden question. I'm going to close 2 annuities a month. My lead bill is paid, my taxes are paid, and I've got extra money for my family. And I've got another client that's happy, that's probably going to refer. Mm-hmm. So forget the win-win. This is a win-win-win-win-win, yep. Right? There's no losing there because you're taking care of every aspect of what you need to do without any extra work other than 10 seconds of this is how it works.
Love it. David, I really appreciate you being so generous with your time and information. I have one last question. Because it's the last, there's 27 parts to it, but I'm messing with you. If somebody wants to start getting into annuities outside of leads, any thoughts on affiliate relationships or cold market, warm market generation? Any ideas that you could share with the group from that standpoint?
Yeah. The hard part there, Frank, is if you're not seasoned in this industry, that's a little harder to do. Okay. So if an agent's already buying leads, then you're not buying extra leads. You can go out and buy annuity leads, but I don't. I never have.
Hmm.
And most agents don't buy annuity specific leads. They just go out and ask the golden question.
Yep.
Okay. Now, as you're in that appointment, whether you do business or not, and Luana, I'm just going to borrow your name. Maybe I just took care of Luana, right? Maybe she wanted some final expense for her parents because she didn't really want the burden of having to bury both her parents, right? And I took care of things. Luana, you know, the forefront of this business is all word of mouth. Who do you know that you think might benefit from having a conversation with me? If I can help them like I did you, I will. If I can, I'll just be honest with them. That's the easiest way in the world to ask for a referral without sounding like a salesperson. Okay. So if you don't want to buy leads for an annuity, you have to get good at asking for referrals. You need to get good at utilizing what you already have and asking those questions. If you want to go completely outside of that, then, you know, you've got your family and friends that may or may not be comfortable with you because they know how you are when you're not working versus not, right? I talk to everybody. I mean, yeah, I actually did a $340,000 annuity for a guy I met at a gas station that was having
Yeah,
trouble with his pump, right? So I got mine started. I walked around, just started yakking. He's like, you know, that's awful nice. And he said, well, everybody needs gas. You can't get to your next spot. You know, what do you do for a living? We just started chatting a little bit while we're waiting for our gas tanks to fill. Next thing you know, we're exchanging information on our cell phones. And I met with him 3 days later and he hands me a statement. He was with T Rowe and he had about $400,000 there, but he wanted to leave $50,000 or so still there that he can play with because this was all after tax money. I wrote an FIA with Athene for him for 340 something thousand dollars off
Wow.
a gas station conversation. So how many
Wow.
times does Sean Mike go out there and just talk to people, right? He doesn't know everybody he talks to, but he recruits all the time. If you want to write annuities without having to run through your leads, you're recruiting through conversations, additional potential customers. So you just got to be able to talk about it, which turns it right back into, I better have things to talk about that they can look up. Did you hear about what's going on in Israel? That's affecting gas prices. Do you think California is going to go to $7 by next week? You know, or are you going to have to work from home for a while? I wonder if that's going to affect your retirement. What are you doing for retirement? And I just find ways to get into the conversation. And I try to be as nice as I can and very calm about it. Because when you're talking about other people's money, the calmer you talk about it, the stronger and more knowledgeable you sound.
Mm.
And you don't sound like you're trying to sell anything. So I don't sound any different with them than I sound right now, no matter who I'm talking to.
Mm.
If I don't know, I'll tell them, yeah, that's a great question. If you give me your number, I'll go find out. I'll call you tomorrow or I'll send you a text, whichever you prefer. And I just look for a way to get in.
Mm.
And, you know, if I can help, I can help. If I can, I can't. But if you're not going to use the leads, which is what we train from, then you've got to be very good at just starting that conversation because people aren't going to walk up to somebody and wonder, what is it that you do?
Right.
Now, of course, I've got my agency logo on my shirt. So I've had people, you know, what is DeSena Financial? Oh, we're retirement specialists. We make sure you get to stop working when you want to stop working versus your boss saying it's time to go.
Mm.
They go, oh, okay. How do you do that? Well, we analyze, we do this, we do this, we do that. I'd be happy to schedule some time. It doesn't cost you anything other than 15 or 20 minutes, and I can let you know if I think we can help. And if you like it and you like me, then we'll schedule a time for me to show you some options. And I just try to roll it forward, but it's, you know, it's just having the conversation, being able to have no fear. Because if you're afraid to talk to somebody, you're afraid to pay, you know, put food on the table for your family.
Yeah.
Our
Well,
our
you're being
business is designed
selfless.
by